minutes each, agreed?
Yeah.
Deputy Murphy.
Thanks, Catherine. I want to focus my remarks on the so-called investment plan for Europe put forward by Commission President Juncker, which supposedly contains 315 billion euros worth of investment, which was described by him as a fresh start for Europe, which has the establishment parties across Europe patting themselves on the back, saying that they're now going to deal with the massive collapse of investment to the tune of almost 400 billion euros below pre-crisis levels across Europe. The Taoiseach joined in on that today, although he did note that the fund has received its share of criticism, with questioning from some quarters as to whether the leverage ratio of 1 to 15 is realistic. That's a slight understatement. This programme has no money. Not one single new euro is brought to bear with this investment programme. It's a very clear case of the emperor having no clothes, and instead all of the establishment and sections of the media talking up something that has not a single euro. So you've gone from 0 euros to 315 billion euros, and it's absolutely reminiscent of the kind of financial engineering that went on before the collapse of the bubble and the crisis that we're living through at the moment. Wolfgang Munchau, writing in the Financial Times, said it reminded him of a synthetic collateralized debt obligation. It was an attempt to get from nothing to something. So if you just go through the figures, you realize how it's built completely on sand. You start off with 8 billion euros. Okay, that's real money, but it's not new money. It's money that is taken from existing underfunded EU budget programs. You get 8 billion, you double it, because you say everything's not going to collapse together, so you can give a guarantee of 16 billion. You add another 5 billion from the European Investment Bank, you got 21 billion. Then you triple the 21 billion, because you say you're going to leverage it by going to the bond markets. So you're up to 63 billion. And then you multiply it by close to 5, by over 5, to get to 315 billion euro, on the basis of supposed expected private investment at a ratio of 5 private sector euros invested for every euro of public sector money, which isn't real money. So there's no new money here contained whatsoever, but the Commission and the Council want to be able to talk about a public investment programme to be able to deal with the crisis. What is actually at root here is the shift towards the privatisation of public infrastructure and the socialisation of private risk. Because the private investors are classified as a senior tranche of investors. And so if there's losses on any of these things, even over the extent of the 8 billion euros, that is actually money that has gone into it from EU funds. If there's losses at all at the start, it's always the taxpayer who pays the bill. The private investors are classified as senior and don't have to pick up any of the tab. So it's a model that we've seen before for subsidisation of private risk, with the taxpayer taking all of the risk and the private sector being able to cream off the profits. And what it also points to is privatisation. I mean, if you look at Juncker's speech in the European Parliament, and he sets out this great vision, a vision of school children in Thessaloniki walking into a brand new classroom decked out with computers, a vision of a hospital in Florence saving lives with state-of-the-art medical equipment. Why are private investors going to invest in hospitals or in schools? They're only going to do it for 2 reasons. 1, if there's a fee, and so people pay per use. Or 2, if they're being paid directly by the state. Either way, it's the public that's going to pay, and the public is going to pay more than they would have paid if there'd just been simple public investment to create these things, because the private sector needs to be guaranteed a significant profit. The other major criticism, because the Taoiseach referred to 315 billion in net additional investments in the real economy. How do you know any of this is going to be net additional investments? How much of this is dead weight? How much of it would have simply happened anyway, but now the public sector, the taxpayer, is subsidising, the private sector is taking all of the risk? There is no guarantee that this generates any new investment whatsoever that wouldn't already have taken place, except now the taxpayer is taking on the risk. So this is not an answer at all to the collapse of investment. The answer to the collapse of investment is investment. Major public investment. For example, ETUC have called for a project of 250 billion euros a year, 2% of GDP of investment. That could be funded You have historically low interest rates. The state can borrow and invest. That will pay for itself economically and socially, or also by going after the massive amounts of unused capital, the hoarded profits, the 21 trillion euros held by millionaires in this country, greater than the sovereign debt of all the countries in the European Union. There's money to go and get it, but we have to access it, borrow the money, and then have public investment to actually create jobs and improve our societies.
Thanks, Deputy.